What if you were kidnapped and thrown into a pitch dark place? Would you kill, loot, and do every other horrible thing imaginable just for you to survive? Well, that's the basic plot of this manhwa that we'll be talking about in today's video. Today we will be discussing the manhwa Reaper of the Drifting Moon. It's an adaptation of Woo Gak's web novel of the same name, adapted by Manga and illustrated by INKY, produced by Redice Studio. So without further delay, let's jump right into it. The story starts off with Pyo Wol, a 14-year-old drifter who aimlessly roams the lands. One day, after gathering his meals, he comes across a weird man, and just as he looks at him, Pyo Wol suddenly blacks out. He wakes up in a pitch-dark area. He could not see anything, nor could he move his body. He keeps reminding himself of who he is to remain sane. After some time, he starts to get back his body's senses and starts to move his body. He discovers that he is in an underground cave. He decides he will not die until he kills the person who has abandoned him in this hell. He eventually reaches the wall and starts to eat the moss that is growing on it. And suddenly at the side of the rock wall, an iron door opens. He sees a person who leaves a plate with food in his room and leaves. But the food given to him was just scrap and rotten dishes. But yet I think we can all agree that it was far better than the moss. He starts to try and survive in that place. He trains and eats the moss and the food given to him once a day. After some days, he encounters a snake. It immediately bites him and Pyo Wol starts to feel the tremendous pain of burning. But he somehow manages to endure it. In the next few days, he gets bitten by the snake several times. After being bitten this many times, Pyo Wol becomes resistant to the pain, and his eyes turn red. And due to the poison, Pyo Wol starts to adapt to the darkness. He keeps training in his chamber when suddenly the door opens. He gets out of that place and finds himself in a corridor. He discovers many other rooms like the one he was in, but he realizes all the other children trapped there are already dead. He then keeps walking down the corridors where he finds other survivors from different sections. They move forward and reach a very vast place. There were numerous infrastructures as if it was an entire sect. Some days pass and the children started to live there as groups. Seo Wol, Kang Il, Yeom Il Jung, and Go Young-san were the group leaders. But Pyo Wol, on the other hand, refused to join any group. Instead, he decides to keep his distance and watch them from afar. After some time, a basket filled with food supplies suddenly drops from above. All the group leaders decide to distribute them among their group members, but Pyo Wol also demands a share of the food. Yeom Il Jung tries to resist, but Pyo Wol immediately stabs one of his eyes and makes him half blind. Seeing the incident, nobody dares to touch Pyo Wol's share. During the next few days, the food is sent regularly and distributed among the members equally. But suddenly, one day, they significantly reduce the amount of supplied food. It leads to chaos among the children. The weak ones start getting killed one by one, just for the others to survive on their portion of the food. Yeom Il Jung and some members of his group try to kill Pyo Wol, but Pyo Wol kills them instead. And like if these side characters even had a chance against our main protagonist anyways. Among these spars, Seo Wol and her group trick the Go Teong-san and capture all of them. Then they wipe out their entire group only to reduce the number of feeding mouths. Pyo Wol, who was watching the whole situation from afar, had finally understood the actual motive of their kidnappers. They were raising the children as kidnappers. After this incident, the children received adequate food as their numbers decreased. Everything was going well until one day, instead of the basket, assassins came down. They were the ones who captured them in the first place. They state that the selection has been complete, and only the fittest have survived. After that, they start the actual training. They taught the children various martial arts and fighting techniques. They went through hell every day for 7 years. That year, Pyo Wol sneaked into the room of the first sword, one of the head instructors. He learns that the Blood Shadow group captured them, who received a deal of 500,000 gold yongs from an unknown client. The mission they had to complete was to assassinate Woo Gung-san, the finest martial artist of the new generation of King Chek sect. After some days, the instructors finally take them out of that hell to the outside world. The captain of the Blood Shadow group meets them and sends them to their temporary hideout. The students remain there for a couple of days and finally enjoy the beauty of nature after 7 long years. And that's when they depart for their mission and reach the Queen Chek sect. They hide in the mountains and wait for the night to arrive. But suddenly, the soldiers of the Queen Chek sect attack them. Someone had leaked their information. They kill several of the assassins. Pyo Wol somehow manages to escape and runs away. After running for a while, Pyo Wol sees Lee Min, who is badly wounded. She was not going to survive. She informs Pyo Wol that Lee Seo Min and Song Cheonwoo are probably dead. They were the ones who fought to the very last to secure as many people as possible. She then asks Pyo Wol to promise he will kill the people who destroyed their lives. Pyo Wol replies that he will, without fail, take revenge on the person who caused them this misery, even if it is the last thing he will ever do. Amidst the chaos, the MAE sect also attacks the main base of the Blood Shadow group. The head of the MAE sect, Abyss of the Nine Calamities, and her disciples, Jeonghwa and Yong Seolran, kill the captain and all the instructors of the Blood Shadow group. They wipe out the entire Blood Shadow group. The dying captain understands that the Abyss of Nine Calamities was their requester of the assassination. After all of this ends, Pyo Wol infiltrates the Quincheng sect and reaches the house of Wu Gengsang, who was training in isolation as punishment for trying to assault a woman in his drunken state. Both Pyo and Wu start to fight each other with the intent to kill. Gengsang uses the secret technique of Quincheng, the 72 sword waves, but it was the last martial art that the instructor taught them, so Pyo Wol already knew about this. So he blocks all of the attacks and, seeing the opening, stabs Gengsang in the chest and kills him. Pyo then tries to escape from the sect, but both MAE sect and Quincheng sect start to hunt Pyo for killing Gengsang. He encounters some soldiers and kills them, but due to the alarm they sent, the joint forces of Quincheng and MAE sect begin to chase him. Pyo leads them to the underground cave in which he trained. He starts to take out the soldiers one by one. He attacks Jeonghwa and takes out one of her eyes. He starts to fight both Yong Seolran and Jeonghwa, but the senior brother of Quincheng sect suddenly attacks him and causes Pyo serious injuries. He then drags Pyo and throws him into the pit of snakes. And FYI, this is the same type of snake that Pyo encountered 7 years ago. So he was resistant to the poison, but the snakes, rather than poisoning him, try to eat him. Pyo, in return, decides to eat all the snakes instead. I mean, that's another way to solve the problem. He then remains and trains in that cave for another 7 years. His hair became white, and his eyes turned bright red. He then got out of the underground cave, rested for 3 days in Jeonghu, and left to Chengdu. Pyo had decided to make both the MAE sect and Quincheng sect pay for what they did to the lives of Pyo and his comrades. And during his journey, he meets with 3 members of the Black Cloud Corps. And just like that, Seo Ranju immediately has a crush on Pyo, due to his looks. She offers Pyo to travel with him as they are going to the same place. He picks up on that offer as he becomes interested in them. And during the journey, Ranju tries her absolute best to impress Pyo. But like the absolute Sigma male Pyo is, he ignores the thought. Alright, I hope you're taking notes, fellow gentlemen. This is peak Sigma male. But jokes aside, all 4 of them reach Chengdu, and Ranju offers Pyo to come with them. But he says he has a job and will join them later. He then goes to a hotel just outside Chengdu while the others head towards Chengdu and meet their leader, Zhang Muryang. The next day, Pyo goes to his nearest workshop street Fire Dragon room, and there he sees a descendant of the Tang clan, getting bullied. His name was Tang Sochu. Pyo then says to him that Sochu will live by his decision, whether he chooses to live like a dog or a man in his own decision. Tang then attacked the people who were bullying him, and after a bit of a clash, all of the bullies run away. Tang then takes Pyo to his house, and he gives him a weapon he made. Pyo names it the Ghost Blades. And then he goes to the White Flower room where he meets Wu Siona, where one of her subordinates tries to attack Pyo, who is a little aggressive. But Pyo takes him down without much effort. Siona then asks Pyo to spare him and tells him that she will take responsibility for the actions of her subordinate. Pyo Wol then accepts her offer and they both enjoy that night somewhat romantically. Yes, you guessed it, savory hand-holding. Then after that, Seolran asks Pyo Wol for a favor, to kill the vice head of the Thunder Clan, and in return, he will receive rewards for her aunt, Jeonghwa. After hearing her name, Pyo Wol immediately accepts the request. And during all these, the Black Cloud Corps meets the head of the MAE sect, Abyss of Nine Calamities, and her disciples, Jeonghwa and Seolran. They offer their corpse to fight for the MAE sect in the war against Quincheng sect. In return, they want to settle near the west platoon of the MAE sect. The same day, the members of the Thunder Clan meet the Quincheng sect seniors and ask them for answers because last night, the vice head of the Thunder Clan died due to the 72 waves of sword technique of the Quincheng sect. So they only blame them. After hearing the accusation, second senior brother immediately attacked the members of the Thunder Clan, mildly injuring them. And that night, Jeonghwa and Seolran visit the White Flower room, where she encounters the son of the second senior brother, Jeongyob. They both get into a quarrel, but the situation doesn't escalate any further. But a while later, Jeonghwa's disciple Gyeongsang is found dead in his room. He was murdered. Without much investigation, Jeonghwa concludes that this was the work of the Qingcheng sect. She orders the Black Cloud Corps to assemble their men and get ready to pursue frontal assault as soon as possible. The leader of the Black Corps then hears from Ranji that Yukbae was severely wounded by Pyo. It happened because Yukbae proceeded towards him with lustful intentions. Jung then tells Ranji that they will dispose of Pyo after the matters with Qingcheng sect have ended. They both return to the White Flower Room, but to their utter shock, it was in chaos. The members of the Qingcheng and the Emi sect had started fighting. Both Jeonghwa and the senior brother's son had clashed. Jeonghwa suffers serious injuries, but Seolran arrives at the crucial moment and rescues her. After Jeonghwa was healing, Pyo arrived there. He reveals to her that it was him all along, the one who caused all this chaos. He also tells her that today he is going to kill Jeongyob of the Qingcheng sect, and he will use the snow cloud piercing strike of Seolran to kill him. Jeonghwa, in a desperate attempt, tries to attack him, but she overuses her power and ends up dying due to her injured condition. Pyo then does what he says, and he goes and kills Jeongyob by using the snow cloud piercing strike. And during all this, Jung notices that the most of the injuries of the soldiers were similar to those of Yukbae. So he immediately reports it to the Abyss of 9 Calamities. She then calls for a meeting where she confronts Siona. She asks her about Pyo. Sedona then says that he was only using him and will never do anything like this ever again. But before she could finish her sentence, Abyss of the 9 Calamities kills her. Her dead body is later thrown away into the jungle for the beast to feast on her. But Pyo reaches there and gives her a proper burial. He says he will get her revenge and kill the person responsible for this. But after some time, the Black Cloud Corps confronts Pyo. They were sent by the Abyss herself to kill Pyo, and they offer him to join their corps, and they will protect him. Pyo, graciously, declines their offer. So, the whole Black Cloud Corps, along with all their soldiers, get ready to fight him. And so, this is the story of the latest chapters of the manhwa series Reaper of the Drifting Moon. I thoroughly enjoyed this series, especially its characters and storytelling. I think that it will exceed the expectations in the upcoming chapters. I also hope that you guys like the series as well as this video. Be sure to comment down below what you would do if you were in the shoes of Pyo Wool. And also, don't forget to like, share, and definitely don't forget to subscribe. And as for now, I'll catch you later. See you in the next one.